folks. I am here with Melanie Curtis, who is several things in my life, including a member of my women's platform. But she is a pro skydiver, she is a coach, and she is author of the book, How to Fly, which is what we are discussing today. Because, Melanie, you've just released the Audible version, and it's been such a joy to watch the process basically from a front row seat.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I love that you're interviewing me, Joya, because you have had a really, truly front row seat to the actual effort, all that it's taken to bring the Audible book into the world. For over a year, I'm a member of your mastermind, and multiple weeks, many times iteratively over the course of this last year, I was, using the group in a positive sense to support me, to help me get through the obstacles that I faced throughout the process of actually creating such a behemoth
project,
creative work. Yeah, it's just such an incredibly large thing that I didn't realize how large it was at the start. And now that it's in the world, I'm elated.
I believe in having accountability buddies for everything, including the big gargantuan projects. All right, so let's get into it. First of all, for those who don't know anything about you, you are a pro skydiver. And for what do folks need to know about that?
Yeah. So I'm a professional skydiver. I'm a life coach. Obviously, I'm an author as well. I'm a speaker, facilitator. My professional skydiving career grew into and evolved into an entrepreneurial pursuit where I have a personal brand, melaniecurtis.com, and all of those things. So the book is How to Fly, Life Lessons from a Professional Skydiver. And it takes the reader, the listener, through my journey as a writer, as a professional skydiver, yes, and as a person. It shares a lot about my entrepreneurial journey, and it also shares a lot about my biggest life breakdowns, and through that, my biggest, deepest healing and my spiritual journey as well. So it's this really broad look over 11 years of my life about all of those things.
There's something so cathartic about putting something in writing. It's one thing for it to be sloshing around, but when you write it down, you get it out of your body, ostensibly for the world to read, but there's something that happens to you inside. Now that the book is out in the world, what would you say that transformation has been?
Oh, God. It's been a thing for me, a core driving value for me over the years. And I actually got this from Elizabeth Gilbert, is this idea, this notion of being courageously self-expressed, that as avenue to our highest contribution to ourselves and the world. So I believe quite deeply that if I am being authentically self-expressed, if I am trusting and being brave enough to be seen and heard in the broad strokes of what humanity and our shared humanity looks like, whether it's achieving big things as a professional skydiver, achieving big things as an entrepreneur or an artist or a writer or whatever, or whether it's in our biggest, darkest moments, that showing that scope allows us to access the parts where we resonate. And then the things that I've done that someone else hasn't done, they might be able to then see possibility for themselves in that sharing. And that's why I feel so deeply called to share in such a significant way about my own life and my own path.
I love that. So you first published this in 2019. What is the iteration that we're seeing in 2021?
Yeah, 2019, this is one of those things where I've been writing this column for 11 years, and it was one of those things I thought about a lot. Oh, I should turn my columns into a book. I thought that at year 5, and I was like, it's not quite ready. Then I go through my own sort of life transformation, my big breakdowns, my breakthroughs, and all the things. And I do all that work, which I'm not going to tell you all about now because you can read it or listen to it. But
we should.
Then I basically, the last 2 years of my writing from 2019 to 2021 is my best absolute best writing to date. It is my most vulnerable sharing. It is the deepest I've ever shared. And therefore, I believe it to be the most impactful. It shares a lot about that deep part of my own journey, and also about the elevated work I'm doing in the world around equity and inclusion and allyship and all of that stuff. So that matters to me, that for it to be out in the world, but also that it's the completion. So I've officially stopped, like my column is complete. So the absolute complete anthology of all of that work. And so my writing in the future will take on new forms. You get a taste of that at the end of the Audible book. But yeah, that's the difference. It's everything, and it's my best work.
I think about that line that Sarah Jessica Parker says when she decides that she's going to end her column, Sex in the City. She's like, well, it'll be a whole new person with a whole new set of problems to talk about.
Exactly. Exactly. There's always room. There's always space for, I always say this a lot as an entrepreneur, as a coach, there's plenty of work to go around. There's plenty of space in the world for people to share their stories, to be seen and heard, to be a coach as a professional skydiver, to be a life coach, to be a speaker, or to be a facilitator, whatever it is the person wants to do. There's an abundance feeling that I've always had around that. And I feel very strongly. And as such, I'm able to really do this with people that follow me, that maybe come to me for coaching or look to me as a leader in the sport of skydiving. It's very easy for me to be like, absolutely do it. Like, there's space for you. There's a need for you. And I believe that truly.
I always love your abundance mentality. And there's been a groundswell of folks writing you saying how much they love your Audible book. So let's get to that. And I'm going to put that up here. Why did you decide to go the route of an Audible book? I get that that's kind of always the next logical step for anybody who has a book. But why did you decide to do that? And why did you decide to take on the task of recording it yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, in short, I am a voracious Audible listener. So I'm just one of those people that loves that format, but I write the way that I speak. So like, if you know me, you can hear me in the written word on the page, right? But if you don't know me, you probably can get it from my writing based on how I use certain, literary tools and profanity and two-dot ellipses that don't exist. Like I take liberties with the literary experience, but I cared to and knew it would be so much more alive and most likely so much more impactful for people if they really heard it from me and felt it from me. And so I'm so glad I did, because that's exactly what I feel like the finished product is, even though it took so much more work than I thought.
I want you to just drill down on the experience of recording this, because I think you're a different person from when you first started. You shelved it for a bit because there were other projects that were taking precedence. Then you came back to it. How are you different today as a result of this project being brought into the world?
Yeah. Some of the things so this book, as I shared earlier, it's the anthology, right? So some things that I read, that I sort of perform, as it were, it's you learn how to go into the character of yourself, because the person I was in 2010 is not the person I am today, right? Mm-hmm. So reading some of the things that I wrote in 2010, in 2012, in 2015, or whatever it is, I really made a point to own those words as if I were living them then. And that was important to me, because there's some cringe-worthy stuff that I share, There's some parts of this book that are clearly me as a sort of less evolved, more unconscious person. And I think that's very important to share so that you can really go through and have the experience with me over time. But the behind the scenes, man, I'm sitting here with this big mic right here. I recorded with this. I learned how to use Audio Hijack. I learned how to do some editing of my own. I realized where I had gaps in my own skills in terms of editing video and audio, and all of that stuff came into it. I had to find a way to hire someone that I could trust with my life's work, So there's so much of that stuff that goes into it. on top of, while recording it, this is something I was a big lesson that I learned was, and I mentioned how I use profanity as a literary tool sometimes, as a conversational tool. And that's a longer conversation, a Tony Robbins thing. And I'm a big believer in certain literary tools. But anyway, when you write a monthly column and you have 600 words once a month, a little bit of profanity is no problem. It's totally
Right.
no problem. It's all good. When you put those monthly columns back to back in a long form work, it is way too much. And so I only realized this after recording like 2/3 of a 13-hour and 3-minute project, which is way more than that. So I had to go back, and I didn't edit any of the original writing from the tone and impact of and depth of it, but I had to go back and edit out some of that profanity and record certain smaller lines, which then opened up this can of worms around audio matching and a file sounding differently. So that type of stuff can easily derail someone if you are not like convicted in finishing something big. Like, the obstacles will arise. So you have to really bring your grit to the table and find the ways through it.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the reactions that you've gotten. Who have you impacted profoundly with this project?
Oh my God. I hope everybody who has listened, it is humbling to me. I mean, I could cry thinking about this. Like, it's truly humbling to me to get some of the feedback that I've gotten, like the personal messages. That certainly the public reviews are always so helpful and supportive and meaningful to me personally, whether anybody reads them or not. But it's really humbling when what you think is going to be the outcome, or what you think is possible in terms of helping another person, when you get that reflected back to you, it's profound. And that's from a broad general perspective. From a micro perspective, when you get to hear people's stories and really know, because they're telling you in detail how what you have done made a difference for them, that is a huge, huge deal. I joke about never making the money back that I spend on it and the time that I spent on it. You know, if my book goes viral in big channels, which I hope it does, I think it certainly has the potential to do that, then maybe I'll make the money back and the time back. But that's genuinely for me, and I'm an entrepreneurial person. I care about those things, and I think it's important to care about bottom line and income streams and all of those things. I talk about that in the book as well. But this work was a calling to me of like, this needs to be out of me and in the world, and I believe it's going to help people, and I think it has.
Talk to me about the power of a mastermind. You're part of mine. You run your own. There's merit in this construct, but what has it done for you, and why should somebody listening to us even investigate the idea of joining a mastermind, whether it's yours or mine?
Heck yeah. I could say so much about this. And honestly, not to super plug your mastermind, but your mastermind is exceptional. As somebody who does lead them, who facilitates and coaches as a part of my work, the LadyDrinks Mastermind is very strong and very supportive, a super strong network. Why they matter to somebody who is wanting to elevate their work or elevate themselves or elevate what they're creating or how much money they're making or whatever it is that their goal happens to be at the time, realizing and really owning that we can't do everything alone is a big deal. And recognizing the power that actually comes in human connection and the support, the focused detailed support around whether it's a specific goal or whether it's in a certain lane of our life. So like I'm in your mastermind as an entrepreneur and a creative, but my creativity is a part of my entrepreneurial self. And so using that space and being able to face challenges and be vulnerable in that space while also knowing it's connected to me elevating, that's the work, but it's also the support that you need to make it through the day when I realized I recorded 6 hours of audio and it was unusable. You know what I mean? Like that support is really, really critical, as well as the reflections and ideas that you get from other minds.
And it's so important to have a space where no one's going to judge you for that. I think that's the biggest thing that I love about the circles that you and I both have created respectively. All right, final question. You are doing a ton of demo jumps in this year, looking backwards, looking forwards, to raise awareness for women's rights. Why is this important, and how is this germane to anything that you mentioned in the book?
Yeah, how it is connected is that as you see the trajectory of me as a person, right? You go through, you kind of see I'm a little bit superficial at the start. I can only share so deeply, and yeah, I'm insightful and all that. And there's a lot of good stuff in the beginning of the book. Don't get me wrong. It's just once I sort of go through my dark night of the soul, as it were, and I really learn what deep healing and spiritual evolution, and I lean in hard to those parts of my own story and my own healing. Only in doing that have I been able to access my voice and my ease in public forums, being on a call like this where I'm public speaking in a way, whether I'm being interviewed by Good Morning America and I recognize the power and opportunity to be on such a stage to make sure I'm saying what matters. That only came from my own personal growth journey. And so to answer your question around the actual demonstration jump team, which is Highlight Pro Skydiving Team and the Women's Skydiving Network, the missions of those initiatives are to inspire women and girls to live bold, brave lives of their own design, and to elevate conversations of gender equality and equity and inclusion across the board in all lanes. There's no way I would be able to lead a team of people who I have admired my entire skydiving career and be in partnership with someone who was my original mentor and be on these bigger stages talking about stuff that is far greater than my individual story. I would never deeply. And because I can do a demonstration jump and do a media interview and really know and feel and care and have learned and listened myself to be able to speak about what is allyship, what is equity, what is inclusion, what does that mean? What is anti-racism? What is, you know what I mean? Like all of those things, I can be in conversation around that because I have cleared away all the things that really held me back from the power of my own voice.
I love the self-investigation. So in a way, like this book, this Audible book, the regular book was really an act of self-investigation. And it's such an important thing. And I don't think enough people do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh. Yeah. 13 hours and 3 minutes of me looking at my life and going, what insight is here to share?
I like to call it the football post-mortem. All right. So before we break, where can folks get this book? I put it down here in the little banner.
Yeah, melaniecurtis.com/howtoflybook. That's where I have it on my own website, but you can also go to audible.com and search for How to Fly Life Lessons from a Professional Skydiver.
Folks, I think that what you will most enjoy about this book is the fact that it is exactly the way that Melanie speaks to you now. And I think that there's some merit in finding people that do exactly that. So best of luck to you, Melanie. I love having you in my orbit. And I can't wait to see what other wonderful things you get up to.
Ditto, my sister. Thank you so much.